I see Ron Leach here. I knew he was coming. And Brian Leventhal, my ultra buddies.
Yeah, Brian's a rock star. So.
Hey, everybody.
Yo, yo.
Hey, how's it going?
What's going on, Brian?
How are y'all?
Good. Hope you are, man.
Doing good. I'll be joining by audio only.
It's kind of hard doing this and flying a helicopter at the same time.
I know. Well, I'm still at work, so I'm and I'll be jumping in the car to commute for the last half of this. So I'll just do the video thing this time.
I got you. Well, we're going to keep it short, so don't worry. Don't worry. But guys, welcome to AUVSI North Carolina. Let's Talk Drones. We'll be getting started here. We'll wait just a couple more minutes. It's 4:03. I know we've got a couple more people coming in. We'll wait a few minutes and we'll get started. If anybody would like to chat with anybody that you see on the screen, please use this time and do so. We encourage that. And we'll get started in probably about 2 minutes.
I just want to say hey to Brian. I hear that you popped on here. Is Paul Rossi, 910 Drones, community outreach coordinator. Hey, good. I saw that there's a potential you might be able to make it down at the end of this month for the Autel demo event. So that'd be pretty neat. I do hope you find the time.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get that to work out with the schedule.
I think compared to helicopters, anything that could stay in the air for 2 hours. Now that might be some serious competition in regards to capabilities.
Yeah, definitely.
And just a quick heads up for those Part 107 operators, AirMap is no longer Lance authorized. So we've been having a lot of issues, people trying to file for Lance with AirMap. They are no longer authorized by the FAA for the Lance capabilities. So just a quick FYI.
What happened there?
Yeah, what's the scoop, Adrian? You know everything.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of AirMap, so I better just keep it at that.
Too many people learning how to use Drone Zone and just get long-term waivers. That's what I wish would happen.
Well, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. It's 4:04. People will trickle in, as you guys know. Dash cannot be with us again. My name is Riley Beeman. For those of you who do not know me, but my name is Riley Beeman. I'm the Vice President of AUVSI North Carolina. We have a host of knowledge on our panel today. And we're going to keep it very simple. So to begin with, I just want to go ahead and welcome everyone and tell you we will not be here until 6 o'clock. So I know everybody's upset. We'll leave the chat room open if you guys want to stay on and talk for a long time. I'm sure Dash will probably log in eventually and he will talk to you until 8 or 9. But we're probably going to keep it pretty short. The reason being is it not just because it's Friday. If you guys are like Miriam and I, we both have kids and family that are doing events here shortly. Athletic events are in full stride right now. So we have homecoming. My 3 boys have homecoming and football games. So I have that in a few minutes. And
my senior has field hockey. So we're
field hockey.
It's a bit.
You have to review some senior picture photos with my son. So
oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, welcome, guys. Miriam is kind of my co-host today. She was gracious enough at the last minute to jump in with us. We're just going to talk about really, to begin with, just what's happening in the state of UAS, kind of what's going on with Drone Safety Awareness Week. What does that mean for us, really? What does it mean for you guys and to you guys? And then really, before we get started, we'll go over, the goods, the bads, what happened at Exponential. I was not able to attend this year, but I know several of our panelists, including Miriam, some of these guys were there and got to talk to folks. So I will turn it over to Miriam and we'll talk about what was going on at Exponential.
So I was able to go to Exponential. Gotta say, I was absolutely so thrilled. I never thought that I would be so anxious to get back out on the road, but I was. The best thing was that I got to meet people like Don Zoldi and Paul Rossi and Adrian Doko in person, live and in person for the very first time, even though it feels like, we've been working closely together for a long time. So that in itself, always the people, that's an amazing opportunity. But I have to say, in case anybody was wondering, it really was like, it was open, it was happening. There were people on the floor, there was new tech out there. There were a lot of people doing business. There were probably some fewer kind of just, oh, let's do a boondoggle and get to go to Atlanta, that kind of thing. But I do think that people who were serious about seeing what new tech was out there, serious about meeting customers, serious about trying to get new resources, were out there on the floor networking, looking for new stuff. I want to share the floor with other people and get their impressions, but I think there were a few themes that stood out for me. For one thing, when I'm listening to Steve Dixon from the FAA, give his keynote speech, he really kind of focuses in on BBLO's flight. This is it. We are getting close here. And one of the things I thought was interesting, I'll leave it to the other people who attended, was that I was seeing more fixed wings, long distance fixed wings. To me, that says, the manufacturers actually see that as a big opportunity too. Like they're pretty sure that this is getting close. This is going to be regularized. We're going to be able to fly these things on a really regular basis. So I'll just point that out as one theme that I noticed. And what does everybody else think? Anybody want to chime in here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get to see a lot of the education because I was literally running around that expo floor for like 3. In fact, I guess I'll call it expo knee. Like I came back and my right knee blew up, right? So
no.
I got a knee brace on as we speak. I mean, AUVSI, I think, was the final straw for my right knee. But the good news is that I was running around, and like you said, Miriam, meeting you, seeing Adrian in person. Paul was there. So many people that we got to see. And it's interesting because later, right, I heard people compare AUVSI to a different event and say, oh, this other event is so much bigger and better than AUVSI. Like, to me, it's almost apples and oranges, right? Because I feel like every single one of these events brings us something a little bit different. And when you think about AUVSI and kind of what they're targeting, I mean, we're talking the defense industry, we're talking all unmanned. So you've got not only air, but ground and, underwater, uncrewed vehicles as well. I mean, heck, there was a ship builder there. So it really kind of a different crowd they were targeting. I didn't see a lot of crossover to the later event, a little bit, but a really different crowd. And it was really great. Look, I'm a first timer. So, I don't have that comparative, it was so much bigger before. The beauty of what I saw was that maybe perhaps because it was a little smaller, you could actually have meaningful conversations with people.
And people were anxious to have meaningful conversations.
Yeah.
This wasn't one of those trade shows where you just sort of stand around awkwardly, like waiting for somebody to talk to. People were really there for a purpose. So.
I think some companies that were there, like mine included, that were really looking to develop business, I think it was a great opportunity to get some good one-on-one time with some of these bigger companies. So that's what I'll say as a kind of a huge thumbs up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Adrian, what did you think?
Yeah, there was phenomenal tech and hardware and software, all types of beautiful stuff. I was really impressed with some of the tech we saw. Skyfront, I believe was the name of the company, had a drone that actually did 13 hours of flight time with a hybrid system. So essentially transitioning gas into electric power and achieving 13 hours of flight on a multi-rotor. That's just phenomenal. And then I was really impressed by this company called VHive, which is not only automating flight missions, but also creating a software to purchase drones off the shelf. So let's say you purchase 100 DJI Phantom 4s or Mavic Pros, and the VHive software could actually program the drones to fly in a swarm technique or pattern, if you will. So, if you're surveying large areas, you can command a swarm of drones with their software. And then probably one of the biggest takeaways with Steve Dixon's son actually has a drone business. So the FAA administrator son went up to him and said, "Hey, Dad, I got my Part 107. It's got your autograph on the bottom. How cool is that?" So that sounds promising for our industry when the boss of the airspace has family ties to the drone business. So that was phenomenal to learn.
All right. And it's got to be said, Adrian Doko is the best dressed person at AUVSI. Sorry. Just had to say that.
Jersey boy.
We were accepting a few awards, so I wanted to practice what I preach and lead by example. But, it was tough. It was tough working in that 3-piece suit,
I think you were wearing a 3-piece suit to a beer party, if I recall correctly, after hours.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of meetings and I just didn't have time to go up to the room and change. So I
outclass us, Adrian. Completely. I just give it up.
When you have a man with metal business cards. It's just what it is. You have metal business cards, you have to look the part.
That's right.
Yeah, first impressions are really crucial in this industry. And, I try to make sure we leave a lasting impression on a lot of our clients and potential customers. So it's hard.
It also serves as self-defense weapon too. Sure.
That's great.
That's awesome. Now I know I did not get a chance to talk about some of our other officers that are here, but Kiana's here, Vern's here, Paul Rossi again is here, and we've got Nicole behind the scenes, behind the curtain, making it all happen. Vern, I know you had a chance to go out to Exponential. What did you see, or what were your takeaways?
Well, I had flown drones quite a bit back in 2015, 2016, and in 2017 with a 333 exemption, and kind of left drones just before the Part 107 came out to pursue my virtual reality development and stuff. Now I'm bringing drones back in. So what was interesting for me is having that gap of several years where the state of the art was the first generation EB drone and the Phantom 3 Pro. And then all of a sudden I step back into it this year and it's like, ooh, this is fun. and then I go to the AVUSI conference and I was just blown away by how far the technology had gone in such a short period of time and where it was going. And definitely, it's like, yep, getting back in the drones was certainly what I needed to do. Cause I've always been a big tech guy, virtual reality and drones and all that kind of stuff. So it was great going there, seeing all the new technology that's out there, being able to meet Dash. And also I'm taking a bunch of courses with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. So I got to meet my instructors. They were there and, head back and that during a little beer twilight hour, have a few beers with my instructors and stuff. It was just all in all, it's a great community. I spent a lot of time going to a conference called ITSEC down in Orlando, which is for simulation training, a lot of VR. And I get a very similar vibe between the two conferences. They're smaller conferences, but it's easier to get out and talk with people. You get some of these larger conferences I've been to. I'm just a weekend, a week-long salesperson. I just hand out. You really don't get a chance to talk with anybody who, oh yeah, I build this or I design this, and so it's good in these smaller conferences like this to have that kind of an opportunity.
That's awesome. Thank you. Paul, I know you were there as well.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Riley. First off, I would say, like Miriam mentioned, meeting people I haven't met before. And if I didn't say I was nervous and had anxiety, at least the day of, not so much leading up to it, but to have virtually connected with people during COVID and to have built what Miriam said is these really good friendships, what it felt like, but then to actually meet these people for the first time in person was was extremely a little bit of nervousness, anxiety, just to see how that would turn out. And as I walked up to the expo center, the first person, of course, that I bump into is sorry, I had a call cut in. The first person I walk into is John McBride, Drone Jesus, as most folks know him in the industry. So it was really exciting to be able to have that first connection. He's such an influential person in the industry, and he was extremely friendly, receptive, just a regular down-to-earth guy. It was very exciting to get out there to connect with these people. I do want to touch on something that Miriam also mentioned, the fixed wing aircraft. And I think if you look at North Carolina, and Adrian was on a call last night on Clubhouse that I was on with some actual aviation fixed wing manned aircraft pilots, we're seeing these fixed wing VTOL long endurance aircraft. And if you look at the state of North Carolina with the IPP program and the beyond, really, until we see this regulatory framework build out, which it's starting to, those aircraft are almost useless or going to be operated in an extremely rare case. So the fact that we see the IPP program transitioning to beyond, drone delivery, making a movement, some remote ID framework, I think that's why we're starting to see an introduction of actual, long distance, increased flight time, coverage area capabilities. And it's really exciting to see. One thing I do want to mention, based off of the interaction we had last night with like a group of manned aircraft community, is that they were kind of presenting this national drone safety awareness. I think a lot of us, when we have businesses in the industry, we think first about educating our customers, educating people that could potentially buy our products, use our services, and we educate them to an extent where they know the value of what we're giving them. But we also have to look and really, these manned aircraft pilots are very anxious to learn what's happening in the drone industry. That's one thing I learned last night. So if you have that opportunity somehow within your community to look at not just folks interested in drones from a beginning level, but educating, especially during this time, manned aircraft pilots, they're interested, and mechanics and from a maintenance side. So that's my shot.
Okay.
That kind of brings us in actually to, Riley, we had talked about sort of addressing the topics of Drone Safety Awareness Week. And, that is one of the topics. So what do you think, Riley? You want to go Monday through Sunday, or do you want to
Absolutely.
or do you want to start with that one?
Oh, well, we're on it. So let's just start with it. So, that's fine. Let's go into that one. I'll let you guys dive into that.
Yeah, so Drone Life and Don Zoldi and Dave Kraus partnered on Drone Safety Awareness Week, and Don and Dave produced a short video every single day. So when we're talking about kind of, reaching out to the community, educating the community, dealing with public perception issues, this is kind of critical. It's really kind of the responsibility of everybody who's flying, certainly those who are flying commercially and professionally, to do their best to communicate, reach out, educate everybody around. And I'll tell you from my perspective, from the stories that come across my desk at Drone Life, this is really critical because you may think that that's sort of not important, what they think, but it's directly related to the proliferation of state and local drone laws, which when we say state and local drone laws, the percentage of those laws which are anti-drone and limiting drone flight versus those that encourage drones and encourage drone flight is astronomical. So I do think that it kind of behooves the pilot community to do their best to make sure that community players, manned aircraft, and other people understand the benefits that allowing drones to fly commercially in your community can bring. What do you guys think? All right, I'm gonna have to call on someone.
I'll just pipe up. I wanted to also say thanks, Miriam, for posting those videos that I did with Dave. Dave is also a fellow Ultra member, right, Ron? And Brian, and always fun to work with him. He's really incredible. He was also on the Dawn of Drones podcast this Wednesday with the FAA, Patricia Mathis from the FAST team, which, Miriam knows this, but so for everybody else, it's on the Dawn of Drones tab on the Drone Life website. So if you didn't get to see it, check it out, because, especially if you want to get especially if you're interested in becoming a member of the FAST team, Patricia is definitely the person to talk about that. And so she walked through the process and how to get involved and the importance of safety. So I think that was really great. So it was a great opportunity. And then I'm laughing because I was on an Instagram live with the administrator on Wednesday. And pro tip, everyone, make sure your cell phone when you're in Instagram live is not on LTE, which mine was. And so I blipped out about 17 minutes through and totally screwed up the whole thing. But, you had the one shot to be with the administrator and you screw it up. It was really fun. Anyway, it's been a crazy week, but great content out there. I saw, Adrian, what's the one that's out there? The droning on drones after dark or something. Some folks are pushing that out.
Yeah, that's the Pilot Institute. Greg Riverdew has partnered with the FAA, Alina George from the FAA, and they're doing one every day as well. They're trying to engage the recreationalists, the Drone Racing League. Jay Merkel was on the first one Monday, but you can find that at the Pilot Institute at their YouTube channel.
Yeah, so many folks out there doing great things this week. Just even on LinkedIn, I've seen companies, like Sage Tech Avionics, every day they're posting something up of, one of their employees and like a vignette, a safety vignette. So, I think it's really great that the work people are doing this week. And honestly, we talked about this Wednesday with Patricia, and Dave. This really isn't one and done, right? Like this isn't like, oh, let's focus on safety this week. Safety is something, and safety culture is something we need to be focused on every single day in this community. So anyway, it's great momentum this week for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Dawn, and the administrator pegged it pretty well. Safety is a journey, not a destination. So thank you for reminding us. Drone Safety Awareness Week, this is the third year the FAA has released this, and the first couple of years were really tough, but we finally got engagement from all different aspects of aviation. Like Paul said earlier, it was really great to hear manned aviation starting to embrace, because for the past few years, it was kind of a lot of bickering and infighting. Well, they're not real pilots. They're not on board the aircraft. And to hear that manned aviation is finally starting to embrace, these uncrewed technologies is phenomenal in my perspective.
And Adrian, you're right. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't mean to put Brian Leventhal on the spot, but traveling around a lot with Brian, he had the opportunity to go backwards. So he went from unmanned to manned, and now a helicopter pilot. And I've been super excited and proud of Brian and all of his videos that he shares with us and all the stuff that he's doing. But I know you may be busy, Brian. I don't know if you're at a good spot, but can you talk a little bit about when you got into the aviation with the Highway Patrol, with the helicopter, what their perception of unmanned was and kind of where it's at now?
Yeah. So, well, first, thanks for calling me backwards. But
hey, Brian, I want to come to your defense, man. I heard that, Riley. Going back.
I'm just saying he went from unmanned to manned. That's what I'm saying.
There's some truth there. So he's not incorrect. So yeah, as far as when I came over to the unit, our pilots, they're pretty good about being receptive to things and being curious. It's kind of natural that there's going to be some hesitancy. Kind of jokingly, one of our supervisors will tell people that, the Highway Patrol has a bunch of drones that we use in our collision reconstruction unit. And he'll say that the patrol has one drone pilot and the rest are operators, referring to me, I guess, as the pilot. But in all seriousness, those those other troopers that are using that tool, the drones to map crash scenes. I mean, they are pilots. They've got a certificate from the FAA, and they're concerned with operating safely and within regulations. And the safety is a big piece of it, because if you're not operating safely and not able, at least in public safety, to use the unmanned tools to get your job done, then the public's going to have a bad perception. And when we lose the public's support, then we're not going to be able to use the tools, and the industry is going to suffer. And, it's just kind of one thing leads to another. So it's a big part of it. And I think manned aviation pilots are starting to realize that people getting into drones and unmanned aircraft systems, that, there's always going to be hobbyists that are, we always heard the terms clueless, careless, and criminal. But for the most part, those of us that are, jumping on these webinars and looking for information and meeting people and talking and sharing ideas, we're all professionals, and everybody wants to, do what they can to further, maybe it's their business or the industry or just kind of unmanned aviation in general. So I think in general, I think there's good reception there.
I appreciate that, Brian. And Darren, we have Darren Goodbar who is on the call too. I don't know if Darren is at a place, and I'm putting him on the spot. Darren comes from kind of a different background as well, from public safety, military, working with manned aviation, things like that. Darren, are you at a spot to where you could chime in on kind of your perception of what's going on with manned aviation and unmanned right now and public safety?
Yeah, thanks, Riley. Great to be here. And yeah, I'm here in Florida with NOAA, and as most people know, NOAA's kind of famous for the hurricane hunters. So we have a really big hangar with a lot of cool planes in there I get to see every day, which is fantastic. And then we have our little office with our drones in it, and that's kind of it. So it's definitely a little bit different there. Ironically enough, we actually had a conversation today about a project we're working on now with menhaden fish. And for those that are unfamiliar, I was unfamiliar. A menhaden fish is high in omega-3 fatty acids. It is a staple in the food chain, but there's a lot of them out there. So the industry harvests these fish at a great rate for feedstocks and for omega-3s, et cetera. You can imagine what it gets ground up into. But part of the investigation is the industry uses spotter planes to find these large schools of menhaden fish. And one of the comments today was that the pilots that are going to be working with us and around this catching procedure is they don't like to talk about drones because they're scared of their jobs being lost to drones. And and it's just ironic that I just had that conversation today, and this is being brought up as well. The perception is still out there that our jobs are in danger from the manned aviation side, and we don't like drones, et cetera, et cetera. And there's even cross pollination inside NOAA in general. We started out as a part of the Aircraft Operations Center, so the UAS were lumped into the big aircraft because of similar paths and policies. We just recently broke away from them, but we still carry those values with us as well. And we actually have the pilots. Matter of fact, the chief of the UAS division is actually a turbo commander pilot from NOAA as well. So he has that manned background too. So there's a lot of carryover and overlap there. And we take that into consideration a lot when we're developing policies and looking at safety management system and training opportunities and things of that nature, even our projects. And we're always looking for opportunities where we can utilize a larger fixed wing aircraft or an uncrewed system to assist, not necessarily replace. But when it's better fit, we're going to go for that. We're identifying research capabilities that will do that. And maybe one day, spotting menhaden school of fish might be an unmanned aircraft thing. That's how Scan Eagle started. They use it to find tunas out in the international waters. was a fish finding aircraft. So of course there is a great opportunity there when the regulation allows it, when the aircraft are certainly capable of doing it, and when we have trained operators to do it as well too. So really looking forward to that kind of stuff as well. So I appreciate you calling me out, Riley. Good to see you as well, sir.
Yes, sir. Good to see you. Thank you, Darren.
Hey,
with that,
Riley, can I comment on just what Darren was bringing up?
Sure.
I think that's where educating the manned aviation folks is, if your business organization is going to head into a direction where they're going to use assets that are more efficient, affordable to use, maybe I think these manned aircraft pilots, again, going back to bigger fixed wing aircraft, more complex systems, I think the manned aircraft pilots who are current, who will easily be able to get a 107 certificate, would be great candidates to operate those types of systems. So you kind of mentioned they're afraid of losing their job, where maybe it's a good idea to learn what that system is and understand that it's not just going to replace you. Someone is still behind that. And I get it. People get their manned aircraft pilot certificate so they can be in the sky, but you can always, fly on the weekends if it's something you want to continue to do. And then on the maintenance side, someone needs to be telling these maintainers that with type certified drones, you're looking at an increase in the number of jobs for airframe and potentially power plant mechanics. But that's, you bring up a really great point, Darren, about that fear of not what the drone is going to do in the sky, but it's going to replace me as an operator.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Vern, were you going to say something?
Yeah, we got a couple questions in chat. If at some point we want to get to those.
Yeah.
Sure. Monica and I were just Miriam and I were just talking about that. So Monica Alvarez has the first question. We want to make sure we answer all the questions. So we'll let anybody jump in on these questions if you'd like to help answer. So we encourage you guys to do so. But Monica Alvarez asked, has there been any discussion from the FAA regarding a UAS rating for mechanics who already hold a mechanic certificate with airframe and or power plant ratings? So if anybody would like to tackle that question. And
Paul, this kind of went into what you were just talking about, is that, there's definitely a crossover here.
Yeah. And to kind of just further that comment I kind of made is type certified drones, UAS that are type certified are going to be type certified through the FAA, very similar, just as a manned aircraft would. So when it comes to the manuals and the way that they're maintained, the same airframe and power plant IAs will be performing this maintenance. So there's not necessarily going to be a drone airframe certification. A drone airframe is still composed of the same materials and components that a manned aircraft would. So if you already have an airframe certification, you should be looking in the direction of companies like UPS Flight Forward, who are operating the Matternet type certified drone, businesses or organizations like Amazon, who's going to be operating a type certified drone. In North Carolina, you've got Flytrex, who's going to be manufacturing their system in North Carolina. So manufacturing jobs, maintenance jobs are going to require the same certification.
And I think too that there's really a trend that I'm seeing, especially in large industry, when you're talking about telecom, infrastructure companies, power companies, and so forth, where drones are not replacing manned aircraft. It's just an additional tool. So they're going to start having just sort of, what's the best tool for this particular job that I'm working on right now? Is it a manned aircraft or is it an unmanned aircraft? And it's kind of this very it's part of the toolkit, not a replacement, but you just use the best tool for the job, whatever you happen to be doing. So I think there's going to be a lot of overlap. If you work in a particular environment that's heavily on the manned aircraft, you may just see additionally some drones coming in and hopefully you're able to just kind of expand the skill set. It's not sort of a replacement.
No, absolutely. and we spend a lot of time teaching that. I know Darren and a lot of the guys from North Carolina know that we kind of preach and tout that everywhere we go, is that, you know, the drone is just something in your toolbox or in your vehicle that's going to assist you. And prime example is, again, going back to Brian and some of the stuff he's been doing this week with NC Hart. You know, a drone's a great asset to the team that's on the ground before NC Hart gets there, to assess a patient, to get to where, you know, they can't get them out, to kind of look to see what the condition is, what are some of the terrain obstacles that they're going to look into. But at the end of the day, they're still going to need Brian and that team to get that person out, to evac that person out. So it's just a tool. But that tool needs to come out of the air when these guys come in. And that's kind of their requirements. So, you know, that's just a really good example of what we're talking about. Any more on that before we go to the next question? Because we do want to make sure that we tackle these questions before we move on.
And just to be specific, I have not heard of a UAS rating for mechanics. So just to get real specific about answering the question, has anyone else on the panel heard of a UAS rating for mechanics?
If you have an A&P, you can pretty much work on anything as long as you go to the school for the manufacturer and they certify you on their aircraft. I've been talking to a couple of mechanics to get their interest in it, to say, you know, you may want to leave manned aviation and consider something maybe where you're not, you know, in the middle of a field at 2 o'clock in the morning, turning wrenches on a broken helicopter. But if they had that certification, it would just, you know, pretty much be a matter of going to these training schools that the manufacturers put out once they get commercialized.
And to be 100% clear, there is no drone rating for a mechanic. Not specifically, like Ron mentioned, that same A&P that the FAA administers is a certificate that's going to be good for you to operate and maintain any type certified aircraft that's certified within the FAA's regulatory framework.
Okay. All right. So our next question was, what has happened with the legislation being pushed by Senator Lee? So I can start off on that. My belief is that it has, at least for now, been not enacted. This is the sort of bill that never dies. It's kind of drone federalism in various and sundry forms. So the idea is that states should have more rights over regulating drones. In some cases, some of the bill's versions have said, you know, 200 feet over a person's house should be private property. So there are different versions of this, all designed to allow state and local governments to control the flight of drones overhead, right? As far as I know, right, to date, it continues to fail. The last effort that we saw was sort of attached to something else. I've been in touch with Senator Lee's office. This is kind of a repeating theme. We see different versions of this bill since 2019, actually, I think is when the first one came out. So always something to kind of keep an eye on. But I know the Drone Service Providers Alliance certainly has been trying to kind of get the word out on this to make sure that the drone community knows about it and can make efforts to communicate with their lawmakers if they'd like to make their voices heard in opposition to that kind of a law. It could be very problematic for the commercial industry, certainly. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll jump on there real quick. If I could implore the drone community, stop being so reactive and let's get a little more proactive. We've had similar issues here in the state of Texas. I know there's something that's bubbling in Ohio as well, but we need to educate all these misguided legislators on trying to supersede the federal or complicate, make a patchwork of different airspaces, which will kind of hinder our industry. So we need to reach out to these lawmakers and explain the benefits of why we're implementing these technologies for good. So if there's any key takeaways from that Senator Lee bill, is we tend to be reactive after the fact they propose these bills. We need to start gathering data and proposing some type of legislation, even at the state level, where we're encouraging these technologies versus fighting other people from taking or carving out, the skies for particular.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a problem if you have administration or particular
More
state.
proactive and find the champions that are in our corner.
I think it'll be a problem if states enact their own laws, because they really don't have the expertise to make those calls. They're responding to constituent complaints, which that's their job. We get it, but having a patchwork is really could be a problem from even town to town in a state. Touching on that, it's not really related, but it kind of sort of is. New Jersey was impacted by presidential TFRs for the last two administrations here. Most of it was up north with the previous administration, and now they're going wild with Biden down in Delaware. So I've been working with some schools, and there's some questions up here. These STEM programs are basically shut down when these TFRs are in place. And has anybody thought about looking for relief from something like that? Because it could be problematic to a program.
Well, one of the things I'm doing here in Salisbury, Rowan County, both the county and the city of Salisbury, they're pretty draconian when it comes to flying drones in parks. Even though we've got some excellent wide open spaces to be able to do things, and I've already engaged with the city's lawyer, and along with me is one of the instructors at Catawba College, who teaches the GIS course, and they also have half a dozen students that are learning to fly and all that. So we're trying to tackle it on more of a city and county level. I'm going to be heading up the county here before long, but I think when I kind of left flying drones just before Part 107 came out, it was just insanity. Everyone talking about, oh my God, you're going to have these things all over the place. And it got kind of crazy. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I stepped off to the side to pursue the VR stuff. But I've told people that it's a lot like, remember the old flip phones when they first started putting the little 320 pixel cameras on it, and everyone lost their minds. Oh my God, these, perverts and all this stuff. Try taking cameras off of phones now.
Exactly. Right? And that's such an excellent point, because it's when people really see the benefit. And so I'm out there saying, hey, it's so much easier to enact laws than it is to get rid of them later. Yes. That when you realize that you've now prevented your emergency services from being able to fly defibrillators to accident scenes, mm-hmm. You're going to be sorry. This is going to be a real problem for your community.
Yeah. And one of the things I keep bringing them up is all those fears and concerns that people had, back in 2017 with the Part 107 really haven't come to fruition. So that's what I'm trying to do, at least at this level, so I can be easier for me to fly and do some things somewhere.
Hey, Vernon, Brian Leventhal here with the Highway Patrol in North Carolina. I'm based at Mid Carolina Regional Airport in Rowan County. So if there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out, and I'll be more than willing to collaborate.
Oh, that'd be excellent. One of the main things I'm trying to do is you've probably heard of the NIST training for yes. evaluation and stuff. I'm going through a course with Embry Riddle right now, and looking at being certified as a proctor for that. And I'm like, I don't have enough room in my backyard. So where can I set up, 50 foot of different stations to do something,
Vern. So you know where you do it at? get in touch with your local Parks and Rec department.
That's-
And I know this because it works, and it's working in North Carolina. The town of Smithfield has designated a space, a drone park, and it's not one of these things where it's like you have to fly your drones here. This is a place where you can come fly your drone if you want to. And what they've done is they've installed a NIST lane. So not only can you go there, but you can go there and actually get better at flying. We're doing the same thing in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We've identified a space and we're putting up a permanent NIST lane. So that might be something you could consider, is looking into the Parks and Rec department, because they're always looking to, turn open space into valuable community area. And I've said this 100 times, people are probably sick of hearing it, but whenever we have these events, these fly-ins, the people that come out are old, young, black, tan, yellow, all races, religions, males, females. Some people bring their significant others out and they just come hang out and like spend time with each other. So there's really a lot of opportunity potentially by connecting with the Parks and Rec department.
Yeah,
which sounds crazy.
Well, I found actually a spot that I'm going to be doing because I have to build the entire apparatus and all that myself as well for this training. And here in Spencer, we have a couple little ballparks by on the end of 8th Street, and they had cleared out an area, and there's an old pavilion, but it's just a perfect little spot. And I've talked to the city, and they're like, we don't care. So Spencer's a little bit more lenient than Salisbury is. So
and one other thing, Vern, I would say too, and Riley could speak to this if needed, if he wants to, is that the 40 plus high schools in the state of North Carolina have adopted NIST as a standard for actual practical proficiency. So what they're trying to do is they're actually trying to stand up permanent NIST courses at each of these high schools. So there's also a pretty good chance that within your region of the state, you could have the opportunity to help these high schools implement this, practical, hands-on testing standard that, guess what? It's fun, it's challenging, and what do students need? Look at me, I'm talking about education here. What am I doing? Anyway.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Paul. And before we go to the next question, again, and this goes back to what Adrian said just a few minutes ago, and something that he and I spoke about when we first met each other is, it is our responsibility is everyone on this chat today, that we educate people, that we don't just educate our neighbor. Just like Miriam saying, and I know Dawn will agree, and Brian is, drones started off, and I hate to keep using the words backwards, but it did start off backwards. They threw the laws and regulations out there, and it was just like, we all know it was a free for all. And what happened was your ground level guys, your men and women on the ground, learned exponentially quicker than your brass in the top state levels, your federal levels, and then they had to play catch up, and they're still playing catch up because they're just not in it as much as what we are. So we have to take the time to educate everybody. And that's our responsibility is to be good representatives of unmanned aircraft and not just talk about the good, but talk about the bad. We spend a lot of time talking about all the good and all the possibilities that drones could bring, but very few times do we talk about the bad. And that needs to be discussed as well. So no, that's an excellent point. And so we don't get off track. We do have a question, and I think that Dawn will be great. Miriam agrees that Dawn would probably be the one to take this question, but we have the question: is the Endless Frontier Act kind of canceling out Mike Lee's legislation?
I feel like that's apples and oranges. I mean, I wrote on this a while ago for Drone Life. my memory of the Endless Frontier Act is it really was focused on research and development and creating a funding system, kind of a funding pipeline for certain technologies so that, kind of made in America technologies would take precedence, and using all kind of authorizing a lot of different vehicles with universities and federal agencies to partner with private industry. That's my memory of the Endless Frontier Act, and it really has nothing to do with abrogation rights and Senator Lee's concerns with kind of who's supposed to be regulating or controlling that low altitude airspace. So my answer would be apples, oranges. And I hope the Endless Frontier Act does pass. If you guys aren't tracking, I don't have my notes here up in front of me, and honestly, it'd be too hard to pull them up right now, but there's a new fund that just came out. I think it's like 1.5 million on the federal side that again is being used to encourage innovation, including for UAS. So if you go on the Defense Innovation Unit, DIU website, they have a pretty good article up there. I know the DoD newsroom just posted something about it. So if you guys aren't tracking that, check that out. But I'll tell you, there's so, speaking of, Endless Frontier and these opportunities, I feel like opportunities are somewhat endless when it comes to partnering with the DoD and federal agencies. I've written about this extensively. This idea for federal labs, places like the United States Air Force Academy, which people don't realize is a federal laboratory, and technology transfer agreements that they can have with private industry to partner and exchange, equipment or, provide funds or just do research together. Air Force Research Lab is a great example as well, of course. We got your SBIR and SITR contracts. People, talk about those, you hear those terms all the time. But those are great vehicles through the Small Business Association that are out there, and a lot of money's dropping into those, including through AFWorks and the Navy's equivalent and DIU. So check all of that out. I'm just going to do a shameless plug here. It's not published yet, but it's soon to be published. I wrote a book, actually, a textbook for for the Unmanned Safety Institute on drone law and policy, and that should be dropping here anytime soon, and with an idea that it'll be ready for the spring semester of 2022. And I talk about all of these things in that book, including starting with the Constitution. So keep your eye out for that. But there's so many opportunities to partner with the DoD and with the federal government in this space.
Yeah. And I think also, when you think about it, the question, however, really highlights part of the problem that we have, back to Adrian's point about, hey, we got to be proactive about this stuff, because we've got some stakeholders in the government saying, hey, we need to invest more in the domestic industry. We need to invest more in making sure that the US is at the forefront of this new technology. And then we have some senators sort of interested in making laws that could really limit that. So I think Adrian's really correct about that. We have to be proactive about this. This is me being editorial, which I'm not allowed to do on my site, but I think the question itself really highlights the kind of disconnect we have here. On the one hand, people are supportive of the industry. They want to make sure that the U.S. doesn't lose their position in the innovation economy. But on the other hand, we're struggling against some of these laws, which would really limit development in some areas. So.
Hey, y'all, I got to dial out, but I just have to say thanks so much again for doing this. I love what you guys are doing in North Carolina. Riley, Miriam, Kiona, Vernon, all of you guys. You guys are doing a spectacular job for the industry, and Paul, of course. So thanks for having me, and happy end of National Drone Safety Awareness Week. And we'll see you guys around, okay? Gotta go.
You,
okay.
Have a great weekend out here.
Bye.
So Dawn brings out a good point, and not to say that North Carolina is the shining star for unmanned aviation, but we really are trying to be proactive. I know this year alone, and I know Paul touched on it. Kiona has sent a message on about community colleges, but just in my county alone, North Carolina has really started to try from the ground up, working with youth to begin with. So we've got programs starting in middle schools. I know in my county alone, and we're a very small county, we have only 2 middle schools, but both middle schools now run a drone program starting this semester. We have a new centralized high school that you guys hear me talk all about that's on our college campus. It's humongous. We started a new drone program for them. We have NIST course everywhere. We're really starting to try to build that up in our small little community. And I know Paul can tell you and Kiona and other folks here in North Carolina that it's taken on very quickly across the state. And we're trying. I know other states are doing the same thing. I know Adrian and his crowd are really trying to be proactive. I know he beats that drum all the time. But again, it's something that we all need to take responsibility of and do. It's 4:57. I know that Miriam and I said that we're going to, keep this pretty short. So we're trying to stay around the 5 o'clock mark or shortly after. Does anybody have anything that they would like to talk about or bring up, before we start trying to shut everything down for the weekend?
Riley, before you go any further, I want to congratulate the AUVSI North Carolina chapter for winning 2 awards again this year. You guys killed it with the chapter of the year and engagement. Congratulations, kudos to the leadership at the North Carolina chapter. And you guys raised the bar so high. So looking forward to maybe catching up to you guys next year.
Yeah, we really appreciate that, Adrian. But if we're all being honest, it's only due to the people who help us, the people like yourself, like Miriam. It wasn't very long ago when you and I and Dash and Tom and several of us were sitting at the Division of Aviation. We had just flown you in for our very first meeting, and we were taking pointers from you. So, if it wouldn't have been for folks like you and Miriam and several other people, it wouldn't be possible. So thank you. And thank you for everything that you've done to help us grow.
All right. I see one hand raised. Olivier, did you want to ask a question or anything or?
Yeah, thank you very much. I apologize. I'm driving, so I'm not able to type my question.
No problem.
So I'm Olivier Defavre. I'm from Village Reach, which is the NGO, non-governmental organization who help implement drone delivery in low and middle income countries. So we work with Valenzi, we work with Super Aero, very similar to Zipline. And I'm also funded the UAV for Payload Delivery Working Group, which is an international working group that works specifically on use cases in developing the enabling environment for drone delivery. My question to you guys, unfortunately, I was not able to go to the AUVSI a couple of weeks ago. I was wondering if any of you had experience or witnessed some technology that is brand new technology that was kind of revolutionary in a context of drone delivery specifically. And the second maybe question is that did you feel during this conference a stronger demand on use cases for drone delivery? Have you seen more potential customers, companies that are starting to be really attracted to using drone for cargo delivery, a parcel or bigger one, either through in-sources and outsourcing? Just trying to get a sense of the demand, and if the demand is increasing. That's it. Thank you very much in advance.
Well, I'll start with that. And Olivier, I, of course, know you because you wrote an absolutely fabulous op-ed for Drone Life. So thank you for that. But I did, I'm always on the lookout for drone delivery. One thing I'm sure is not brand new to you and your business, but I'm seeing more integration with cold chain. So to do drone delivery, specifically medical drone delivery, with temperature control and other customized payloads based on kind of whatever it is. So, it's one thing to deliver a box of Band-Aids, and it's another thing to deliver, of course, blood supplies, vaccines, etc. So I did notice that as a trend. I think that there is demand for drone delivery, but of course, in this country in particular, the regulations are such that it's still just being done on kind of trial and smaller project bases. It hasn't been able to scale as much as they would like, but I am seeing internationally companies, for example, Volatus in Canada, kind of stringing together permissions so that they can do very long distance delivery, cargo delivery, and so forth. So I know I'm seeing more stuff popping up with use cases, trials, and special permissions for sort of mid-range cargo delivery. Like, I'm out on a pipeline, I need supplies or a tool, I can do that on an on-demand basis rather than kind of waiting for regular shipments, or, for example, ship to shore if you're in a port, instead of waiting a long time for the ship to get to you and deliver your papers, you can do an on-demand kind of delivery from ship to shore that actually has incredible applications in a port scenario, which is not sort of an everyday broader thing. But in these specific use cases, I think that the return on investment is so significant that I'm definitely seeing much more interest in developing the technology, and in large companies going after whatever the waivers are, whatever the requirements are to make it happen from a regulatory sense. Anybody else want to chime in? Also, the one new thing I saw was delivery specifically for fire. That was like very interesting, like being more tactical about fire, where you can deliver hose and so forth. So you require a larger cargo drone. But
yeah, Miriam, I think you're spot on. There is a trend developing specifically for drone delivery. There was a few exhibitors. One was from Ukraine who had a large format. So these drones are growing, obviously, to accommodate heavier payloads. This one had a 55-pound payload capacity. It was an eVTOL. It looked phenomenal. It was a blue and white aircraft, if you had a chance to see that. We're also noticing mechanisms that are involved in drone delivery. A to Z, I believe was the name of the company, specifically designed some sort of payload that you can outfit on numerous different platforms to execute drone delivery. And then, there's all other companies, but it all boils down to the regulation, right? Obviously, here in the States, democracy could be a double-edged sword, but you go to China, when China wants to get something done, they get it done the next day. So, you look at Zipline in Africa, their waivers are a lot more generous. You can deliver. So definitely, that's part of the holy grail. Once we get to beyond visual line of sight, you can definitely expect drone delivery to get to that last mile of delivering those packages. So I think it's safe to say, yes, the trend is moving in that direction.
And if I can add, use cases is important, and then software is important. What you don't see at AUVSI in Atlanta on the showroom floor is their software, right? They put this shiny aircraft, they might hang it from a wire, put it on a cool box, shine some cool lights on it. That's great. They might even put a video of it flying. But what you're not seeing is the software that allows this operation to take place. And I think we have the means, the hardware, we have the drones that have the capability, but there's a lot more and Miriam talked about, scaling. Olivier mentioned zipline in Africa, right? What's the use case? Drones in public safety, thermal drone, $10,000. You can pay that because you're saving someone's life. In Africa, with zipline, you're talking about getting blood to remote areas where the government can get behind that because you're producing stronger communities, right? What's driving drone delivery in the United States? Yariv Bash is the co-founder of Flytrex, and he wrote an article, I think it might have been with Drone Life, Miriam, I don't know.
I don't think so.
But what he mentioned,
other people.
no, I think it was when he talked to,
Maybe.
he mentioned instant gratification, right? In the United States, what is everybody trying to solve right now with drone delivery? Like the bigger players, Amazon, right? Two-day delivery. That's not instant enough. So they want 25-minute delivery. I'm here and I want it now. Don't put it in a special mailbox. I don't need it to get locked in a mailbox because I'm right here. So if you can get it to me in 15 minutes, just drop it in my backyard and I'll get it myself. But we're trying to solve and provide a solution for something called instant gratification. How can people expect the government to throw so much resources behind providing a service such as instant gratification in the form of 6 nuggets and a fry, right? So that is the reason why Zipline had great success in Africa, but Zipline came to the United States, and it's just kind of like, there's nothing there. But I do think that, again, Adrian mentions even something to attach to a drone. You can't attach something to a type certified drone that hasn't been previously certified. So the FAA did open some framework for drone delivery under Part 107 with a Type 4 or a Category 4 UAS, right? If you're operating a Category 4 UAS under Part 107, you can fly over people. But it's going to come at a super high cost because you're going to have to maintain that aircraft with mechanics. And what's your return? What is your ROI? Now, what people don't see at the Exponential is the pilotless air taxis. So some of this, some of what we're seeing now, again, it's step one, it's infancy, laying the groundwork with hamburgers and hot dogs for the Joby Aviations, right? I mean, big things are happening. And now Adrian mentions EHang, and I'll be done here in a sec, like fast. EHang, right? They're doing cool things in China, but they're not doing anything in the United States. And if you can't do it in the United States, it's not that big of a deal, because if you can do it in the United States, then people know you can do it anywhere.
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing much more. It's going to be medical first, and some of those large industrial uses like pipeline, cargo delivery, those specifically because they offer both high return on investment. To Paul's point, they're more important than nuggets and fries, but they also offer a low risk environment. So if you're working in the pipeline out in Alaska, people are not so much worried about the flight over people aspect and so forth. So I think we're going to see those low risk environments with a high return on investment definitely coming in before we see sort of scaled drone delivery in suburban communities.
So if I may jump in, I really like what I'm hearing, and I'm totally in agreement with you, Paul, but I think it's up to us to challenge the thinking around drone delivery. I think there is this parcel delivery. It's a very small use cases that will not allow in anytime soon investors to have their return on investment. Drone delivery is a logistic tool. A logistics tool is agnostic to the product. Therefore, I sincerely believe that drone should be seen across the different sector and not just for one type of product. Yes, blood in the high value product will help you, advance with the regulation, get there's some authorization and so on, but it will not allow you to sustain. Zipline, I question their ability to sustain if they don't start going beyond those high value product. And yet they are limited into the capabilities, right? That's why I think also parcel delivery versus middle mile, larger payload delivery is a totally different world, where as soon as you can carry bigger payload, then you are able to tackle so much more agnostic to the sector, so much more market, that you'll allow to reach a quicker return on investment. And then it's going to be like a snowball effect. And that's what we're actually seeing it in Africa. I know Africa is than the US, obviously, but what we're doing in Africa with Super, we are being agnostic to the product. Yes, we are still working under the health, but even within the health, we are transporting anything. We're transporting reports. We're transporting more and more of various different type of product. And we see that all of a sudden there is a market opening that's happening progressively as people are exposed and realize that this is at a fingerprint and that we can leverage that piece of technology. And so what I'm trying to do in my own little niche here is to try to break the segmentation, the compartmentalization of application use cases of drone for delivery, because that is slowing down the growth of this industry. Thank you for the opportunity.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And, hopefully when we get drone delivery sort of approved and scaled for, something, we'll get it approved and scaled for everything. I think you're absolutely right.
And Miriam, just to kind of add a tiny note, is that when we talk about larger payloads, remember, we're 107 remote pilots, we're type rated for small UAS. So that's anything below 55 pounds. So again, there's a framework. Right now it's 44807, but we did talk about mechanic certifications earlier. One thing I do wish I would hear more talk about is, what does an MUAS look like? What does an LUAS look like? So 55 to how many pounds, and then how many pounds to how many pounds? And now the risks associated with operating, even though we do want to take these to the pipelines and the other areas, the risks associated with operating larger aircraft, you get into the area where you start to justify potential ROIs and operations where a practical hands-on test could potentially be administered by the FAA. So I think that is potentially a pathway in regards to like larger 107 drone delivery ops, because you got to remember, if you want to carry a 50-pound payload, your drone's going to have to be a big size drone, and you're well over that SUAS weight.
Yep. All right. Anyone else want to chime in? I'm not expert enough. That was great, Paul. Thank you for pointing that out. Of course, it's a different thing.
All right. If nobody has anything else, we would all like to thank you for logging in on this episode and monthly podcast or presentation for AUVSI North Carolina's Let's Talk Drones. We appreciate everything that everyone adds, and everyone brings something to the table. So Miriam, thank you so much for jumping on today. Adrian, as always, thank you for making time. All of our officers, thank you for all the folks that have logged on. Brian, I know you're working. Thank you guys for being a part of this. We'll be posting what we'll be doing next month very soon. But again, we hope everyone will join us, and we'll figure out what the next topic is. I think it may be something public safety based. I'm not sure yet, but we'll go from there. And last but not least, thank you, Nicole. I know you guys never see Nicole, but thank you so much for everything you do and making this all possible and keeping us all together. So thank you.
And thank you to everyone who asked questions also, because
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that really adds to the discussion. Nicole, where is your daughter?
Without your questions, it wouldn't be anything.
She's right here.
Hi, Riley. Okay.
All right, guys. Well, I know I want to get Miriam to her game just as much as I want to get to ours. So we hope everybody has a great weekend.
Take care, everyone. Thank you very much for being here.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Riley. Have a great weekend.
Yes, sir. You too.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.